When working with complex concrete shapes, freeform rebar can be used to place rebar that follows irregular non-planar surfaces. This method can be useful when working with civil structures such as bridges and tunnels. Multi-Rebar Annotations, or MRAs, are used to detail rebar sets in plan, section and elevation views. The MRA is a combination of a rebar tag and a dimension. The MRA would automatically display the extent of the rebar set and tag the rebar with the relevant information. The bending details display accurate details about the rebar shape and the dimensions, which can assist when fabricating the rebars themselves. The bending detail can be realistic or schematic and can be configured within the Type Properties dialog. Our first task is to add some freeform rebar to this curved slab. To do this, on the Structure tab in the Reinforcement panel, we'll select Rebar. Because we're in a 3D view, you'll notice that freeform is the only placement method available. We do, however, have two distribution types that we can use, surface or aligned. We'll begin with surface. If we take a look onto the Rebar Set panel, we can see here that the layout spacing is currently a single rebar. We'll change this to maximum spacing and we'll enter a value of 10 inches. We'll now select our host surface, which is going to be the top face of our slab. To continue and pick the start surface, we can press the spacebar or we can select Start Surface. We'll select the front face of the slab as our starting surface, and now we'll go ahead and select the end surface and we'll pick the back face of our slab. To complete the placement of the freeform rebar, we'll select Finish. We can now see the freeform bars placed out into the slab. Next, we'll create some U-bars. To do this, we're going to use a different distribution type. In the distribution type panel, we'll go ahead and select Aligned. And again, we're prompted to select Host Surfaces. Now, because we want a U-bar, we need to actually pick the three faces that we've just picked previously. This will define the U shape. So I'll select my starting surface, my top surface, and my back face. And additionally, when we're using Aligned, we must also specify a path. So we'll select Path, and we'll select this edge of the slab. In the Properties palette in the Type selector, we'll change the rebar from number 8 to number 6. And again, we'll finalise the command by selecting Finish. We can now see our U-bars placed. We can now exit the command by selecting Cancel. The U-bars are currently placed in exactly the same plane as the top reinforcement, so of course there's a clash between the two rebar sets. We'll now edit the constraints, so we'll select the U-bars, and on the Modify Rebar tab in the Constraints panel, we'll select Edit Constraints. Zooming out, we can actually see here that we have a constraint currently set to cover with a 0 offset. Let's now edit the offset, and we'll type in -1 inch and press Return. To complete the constraint, we'll select Finish. We can now see that the U-bars are sitting below the main reinforcement. Inspecting the reinforcement further, we can see here that we have a partial rebar. So here we can remove the last bar. Okay, so the rebar arrangement is now complete. We'll now add some tags and details to another view. In the project browser, under Elevations, let's open up Rebar Detail A. We'll begin by placing some multi-rebar annotations. To do this, we'll select the Annotate tab, and in the Tag panel, we'll select Multi-Rebar Annotation. Looking onto the Tag panel, you can see that we have an option to pick the position for the tag. I'm going to leave this deselected. And on the options bar, you can see that we are currently creating a leader. To place the multi-rebar annotation, I can select the rebar set, and then I can move my cursor to the right and left click where I want to actually place the MRA. Let's now repeat this for the rebar set in the middle here. So we'll select that rebar set. Again, we'll move the cursor to where we want our MRA to be placed and left click. To exit the command, I'll press Escape twice. And we'll now tidy up the annotations here. So, zooming in, I'm going to use the Tab key to select the dimension. With the dimension selected, I can then use the grips to drag the text. You can currently see that the leader is being displayed, so on the options bar I'll remove that leader. And I'll do a very similar thing for this dimension here. So I'll use the tab key to cycle the selection so I can select the dimension itself. Again, I can use the grip here to move the annotation. And once again, I'll remove the leader from the options bar. We'll now place out some bending details. Let's begin by placing a bending detail on this U-bar. So we'll select the U-bar first, and on the Modify Rebar tab, under the Symbol panel, you can see we have bending detail. Let's select bending detail, and we can see here we have a bending detail on our cursor. This is a realistic bending detail, and we can also create, if we want, a schematic detail as well. In this case, I would like this to be aligned to the rebar, so I'll select Align to Bar. And now we can see that when we left click, the bending detail is placed in alignment with the rebar. We'll now place a schematic bending detail, so we'll select the schematic type option, and we'll select this rebar set here, and again we can place out our schematic bending detail. To exit the command, we'll press Escape twice. Finally, we'll add some tags to the rebar set at the bottom of this slab. To do this, on the Annotate tab, in the Tag panel, we'll select Tag by Category. We can then zoom on the slab and we'll pick a position where we want the tag to be placed. Again, we'll press Escape twice to come out of the Tag command, and we'll select the tag that we've just placed. Looking into the Properties palette, I can see here that we have a leader line currently attached to the tag, so I'm going to remove the leader line. And also here, we can choose the type of tag that we're placing out. Currently, we're using type and number. Of course, I can use the Copy tool to copy the tag to other positions on the rebar set. To do this, we'll select Copy from the Modify panel. We'll select our start point as being the midpoint of this rebar here, and then we'll snap it to the other rebars. And to finish copying the tags, we'll press Escape twice. Okay, so our bending details and tags are now placed on the view.